Ava King sat at the last row of her classroom, staring at the open book on her desk. But her eyes were dull and tired, as if she had not slept for days. She was the only daughter of Robert King, one of the richest businessmen in the country, a girl who once walked with confidence, grace, and a bright smile that everyone admired. But now, she looked like a shadow of her old self. Her skin had turned pale, almost colorless, and her lips were dry. She kept rubbing her hands together, as if trying to warm herself, even though the classroom was perfectly comfortable. Students around her whispered quietly, but loud enough for Ava to hear if she paid attention. "She has changed so much," one girl murmured to her friend, covering her mouth with her hand. "I heard she is sick with a rare disease," another student whispered. "No, she is just acting to get attention." "You know rich kids," someone replied with a small laugh. The gossip spread like a small fire through dry grass. Ava kept her head lowered, ignoring every voice, but inside her heart she felt a heavy pain that was far beyond physical sickness. She wanted to speak, to tell them she was not pretending, but her throat felt tight and her words refused to come out. The classroom teacher, Miss Rebecca, entered and paused when she saw Ava, but instead of asking if she was all right, she simply glanced around and continued with her lesson as if nothing was wrong. No teacher wanted to get involved in the life of a billionaire's child. They feared making a mistake and losing their job. Ava sat motionless, trying to focus, but her pen slipped from her fingers. Her vision blurred for a moment, and she pressed her hand against her forehead. A sharp pain shot through her head, and a cold sweat formed on her neck. She swallowed hard, trying to hold herself together. During lunch break, Ava walked slowly to the cafeteria, but she did not take any food. She sat alone at a table, looking weak. Only a few months ago, her table used to be full of friends, laughing, taking selfies, and talking about parties, expensive holidays, and branded clothes. But now most students avoided her. Even her closest friends, Mia and Chloe, who once followed her everywhere, now kept their distance. "Don't sit with her," Mia whispered to Chloe. "What if her sickness is something weird? People say a doctor could not fix her. It's scary." They both walked past Ava as if she was invisible. Ava lifted her eyes and saw them, but she did not call out. She knew if she spoke, they would pretend not to hear, so she quietly packed her things and left the cafeteria. She walked down the hallway, each step feeling heavier than the last. Her heartbeat felt slow, then fast, then slow again, like her body was losing control. Her legs trembled. She reached her locker but could not open it because her hands were shaking too much. She leaned against the locker, took a deep breath and closed her eyes, hoping the dizziness would stop. It didn't. When school ended, students rushed out happily, talking about their plans for the evening. Ava walked behind them slowly, almost dragging her feet. As she reached the school gate, her driver stepped out of a black luxury car. He held a small bottle of medicine and handed it to her. "Miss Ava, take this now," he said politely but with a firm tone. Ava stared at the bottle with fear in her eyes. She did not want to take it, but she felt too weak to resist. She took the medicine quietly. Within minutes, her body felt even heavier, not better. She wanted to tell her driver that something was wrong, but he had already opened the car door for her to sit inside. She sighed, sat down and closed her eyes as the car drove away. The next morning, Ava tried to look more awake. She put light makeup, tied her hair neatly, and forced a small smile at her reflection in the mirror. "Oh, you can do it," she told herself softly, but even her voice sounded thin. At school, whispers started again the moment she walked in. Someone took a picture of her and posted it online with the caption, "Billionaire's daughter turning into a ghost." Ava saw it on her phone and felt her chest tighten. She kept walking, trying to ignore everything, when suddenly her vision turned dark for a second. She blinked, shook her head, and grabbed the wall for support. No one noticed. In class, she tried to copy what the teacher wrote on the board, but her hand moved slowly. The letters on her book looked double. She rubbed her eyes again and again. Her breath grew short. She wanted to raise her hand and ask if she could go to the nurse, but pride stopped her. She didn't want anyone thinking she was weak. After class, the hallway was full of loud voices, laughter, and running footsteps. Ava walked slowly, holding her books close. She felt numbness in her fingers. A loud ringing filled her ears. Her heartbeat sounded like a drum inside her head. She took one more step, then her legs gave up. In a blink, Her books fell from her hand and scattered across the floor. Ava collapsed onto her knees, then fell flat onto the hallway tiles. Students gasped and stepped back as if she was dangerous. Some stared, some whispered, some even recorded on their phones. But no one moved forward to help. Even her two closest friends, Mia and Chloe, who were just a few feet away, stared at her with uncomfortable faces. "Let's go," Chloe whispered, pulling Mia's hand. "I don't want to get dragged into rich family drama." They turned and walked away while Ava lay on the floor, breathing weakly. She tried to lift her hand and call for help, but her voice was too soft. Her eyes filled with tears, not just from pain but from the cold truth that she had no one left. The hallway slowly became silent. Students left one by one. Ava's breathing grew slower, her eyes blinking weakly as if she was fading away. The scene ended with Ava lying helpless on the ground, and not a single person came forward to help her. Ethan Reed was walking down the hallway with a small worn-out backpack hanging from one shoulder when he noticed the strange silence around him. Students were gathered in a loose circle, staring at something on the ground as if it was a scene they wanted to watch, but not touch. Ethan, a poor but hard-working student, did not usually get involved in other people's problems. He was used to staying invisible in school. He came from a small house in a poor neighborhood, lived with his mother who worked extra hours to pay rent, and he himself worked at a grocery shop every evening after school to help with bills. He wore the same 2 or 3 shirts on rotation. His shoes were old, and the only new thing he owned was a watch gifted by his mother on his last birthday. He was quiet, polite and more mature than most boys his age because life had taught him responsibility early. As he reached the circle of students, he saw Ava King lying on the cold floor. Her eyes were half open, her breathing weak and her face pale like snow. The other students watched with fear or discomfort, but no one bent down to help her. Some recorded with their phones. Ethan scanned their faces and felt anger rise in his chest. Without thinking twice, he stepped forward and pushed his way through the crowd. "Move," he said softly but firmly. No one stopped him because Ethan never caused trouble. He knelt beside Ava and gently placed his hand under her head to lift it. Her skin was cold. "Ava, can you hear me?" he asked. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Ethan looked around and called out, "Someone get a teacher!" But the students stared at him silently as if frozen. No one wanted to be involved. Ethan sighed and shook his head in disbelief at their indifference. He grabbed a water bottle from his bag and carefully poured a little water on Ava's lips. She swallowed weakly. After a moment, her eyes slowly moved to look at him. She seemed confused to see him, as if she couldn't understand why someone like him was helping her. Ethan spoke softly. "It's okay. Breathe slowly. I'm here." His voice was calm, warm, and full of concern. A few seconds later, Ava tried to sit up and Ethan supported her back with his hand. As she shifted, Ethan noticed something that most people would have missed. There were tiny needle marks on the side of her neck. Not one, not two, but several small marks, almost hidden by her hair. He frowned slightly. They didn't look like normal hospital injections. Ava winced in pain as he accidentally brushed near the marks, and he immediately pulled his hand away to avoid hurting her. He also noticed how her hands shook uncontrollably, and her pupils looked strangely small, almost shrinking. Ethan had seen something similar once, when his neighbor was given the wrong medicine at a free clinic. The thought struck him sharply. This did not look like a normal illness. Something felt wrong. Very, very wrong. He gently placed his hand on her forehead and felt the cold sweat there. "You need help," he whispered. She murmured, "Please, don't tell." Ethan leaned closer to hear her. "Don't tell who?" he asked. Her eyes widened with fear and she shook her head weakly. Before she could say more, footsteps echoed down the hallway as a teacher finally arrived. Miss Rebecca appeared with a worried expression, but when she saw Ethan holding Ava, her face changed to a forced calm. "What happened here?" she asked sharply, not looking directly at Ava. Ethan replied, "She fainted. Someone should call the nurse or her father." Miss Rebecca hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. After all, this was the daughter of the most powerful man in the city. Any wrong step could cost her job. "I will inform the office," she said quickly. "You may go now." But Ethan refused to leave her alone. "She needs to be taken to the nurse," he insisted. Miss Rebecca pursed her lips and said in a cold voice, "Her driver is already coming." "That is enough." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. How could a teacher be so careless? When Ava's driver arrived, he politely thanked Miss Rebecca, ignored Ethan completely and helped Ava stand. But Ethan noticed Ava's expression. She looked uncomfortable with the driver, almost scared. Her eyes met Ethan's for a brief second, and in that moment Ethan felt something like a silent plea for help. But before he could say anything, the driver rushed her out of the school. The crowd slowly left, whispering again, but now with new rumors. Ethan sat down on a bench, trying to understand what he had just seen. His heart felt uneasy. Something deep inside told him Ava's problem was not simple sickness, and the adults around her were either pretending not to see or were hiding something. On his way home later, these thoughts stayed with him. He remembered how Ava once used to be cheerful, always surrounded by friends and admiration, while he remained invisible. Life had given her wealth, comfort, and luxury, but now she looked more alone than anyone he had ever seen. That image of her lying helpless, while her own friends walked away, repeated in his mind again and again. Ethan felt a strange pull inside him, a feeling he could not explain. It was not love yet, nor sympathy alone. It was a strong sense of responsibility, and an instinct that told him Ava needed someone. Not someone rich or famous, but someone who actually cared. That night, Ethan could not stop thinking about the needle marks on Ava's neck and the fear in her eyes. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if fate had pushed him into something bigger than himself. He knew nothing about the rich world or its problems, but he knew one thing for sure. Something was terribly wrong with Ava King, and he might be the only one who noticed. The next day at school, the air felt heavy with whispers about Ava King. Students shared new rumors, as if her life was a story for entertainment. Some said she had a dangerous disease, others claimed she was losing her mind. No one cared to find the truth. Ethan walked through the hallway quietly, thinking about the previous day. He could not forget the fear in Ava's eyes, or the strange marks he had seen on her neck. He wanted to stay away from problems, but something inside him refused to ignore what he had witnessed. During the first class, Ethan kept glancing at her empty seat. She did not come to school the entire morning, and he felt uneasy. At lunch, while the cafeteria buzzed with laughter, gossip, and phones flashing for pictures, Ethan sat alone, poking his food without appetite. He overheard Mia and Chloe at the next table whispering loudly on purpose. "Her father probably took her to a private hospital," Mia said, flipping her hair. "Or maybe she's being quarantined," Chloe added with a dramatic tone, pretending to shiver. They giggled, enjoying attention from other students listening. Ethan clenched his jaw. He disliked how easily people turned someone's suffering into a joke. Still, he remained silent, because he knew arguing with them would change nothing. After lunch, while walking toward his next class, Ethan turned a corner and stopped when he saw Ava sitting alone on a bench near the school garden. She looked weaker than before, her eyes dull and tired. Her hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and she held her arms close to her body, almost hugging herself as if trying to stay warm. She didn't notice Ethan at first. He slowly approached, unsure if she wanted him near her. "Hi, are you okay?" he asked gently. Ava raised her head slightly, surprised to see him. For a moment she simply stared, as if trying to recognize him through her exhaustion. Then in a soft voice she said, "You shouldn't talk to me." Ethan frowned. "Why not?" he asked. Ava turned her face away, her voice barely above a whisper. "People will avoid you too. They avoid me now. I don't want to ruin your life." Ethan sat on the edge of the bench, leaving respectful space. "I don't care what they think," he said quietly. "Yesterday you needed help. Anyone would have helped." Ava gave a weak, sad smile. "But no one did," she said, her voice cracking with pain, not just from illness, but from loneliness. Ethan had no answer. The truth hurt. Ava inhaled slowly, as if gathering courage, then said, "Thank you for helping me yesterday. You're the only one who stopped." Ethan nodded quietly. He didn't need thanks, but hearing it made his heart feel strangely warm. For a few seconds they sat in silence. The school garden around them was bright and peaceful, but the silence between them was heavy. Then Ava spoke again, her voice trembling slightly. "Ethan, please don't tell anyone about what you saw yesterday." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. About what? He asked, knowing exactly what she meant. Ava lowered her eyes. The marks. On my neck. Ethan leaned a little closer, lowering his voice. Ava, what's happening to you? Those marks didn't look normal. Can't your driver... Ava quickly looked around, fear flashing through her eyes. Please, she whispered, don't say anything here. Walls have ears in this school. Ethan's eyes widened. Her words did not sound like the fear of a sick girl. They sounded like the fear of someone being watched. Ava, is someone hurting you? He asked carefully. She shook her head, but her expression did not match her answer. I'm just... Not well, she said, forcing a small fake smile. My medicine makes me feel strange sometimes. Ethan studied her face, and he could see she was lying or hiding something. Medicine is supposed to make you better, not weaker, he said. If it's making you worse, you should talk to your father. At the mention of her father, Ava's body stiffened. She looked down at her hands and whispered, My father believes the doctor. He thinks I'm improving. Then she looked up, her eyes filled with sadness. No one will believe me, Ethan. Everyone thinks I'm just being dramatic because I'm rich. She laughed softly, but the laugh was empty and full of pain. Ethan felt anger inside him, not at Ava, but at the people around her who failed her. I believe you, he said firmly. Ava's eyes widened slightly, surprised to hear those words. Why? She asked in a broken voice. Why would you believe me? You barely know me. Ethan shrugged gently. I don't need to know you for years to see the truth. I saw your eyes yesterday. That wasn't an act. You're scared. And someone who is scared doesn't lie about pain. Ava's lips trembled, and for a moment she looked like she might cry, but she blinked the tears away. I can't talk now, she whispered. If someone sees us, they will question you. It's better if we don't talk in school. She stood up slowly, using the bench to support herself. She took one step away, then paused and looked over her shoulder. But if you really want to help me, meet me near the old library after school. Don't let anyone see you. Without waiting for an answer, Ava walked away slowly, trying to stay balanced. Ethan watched her leave, his heart pounding. The old library was a building behind the school that students rarely visited anymore, because it was almost abandoned. Why would she choose that place? Why the secrecy? Something serious was going on, and Ava was terrified to speak openly. Ethan knew he had a choice: ignore her warning and stay out of trouble, or meet her and step into a problem that could change everything. But deep inside, he already knew his answer. As the school bell rang, Ethan looked in the direction Ava had gone and whispered to himself, I'll be there. What he didn't know was that someone else had been watching them from a distance. When the last school bell rang that afternoon, students rushed out of the building, laughing, chatting, and planning their evening as if nothing unusual had happened that day. But for Ethan, the final bell did not bring relief. It brought tension. He packed his few books into his old backpack and walked slowly toward the back of the school, where the old library stood. The building looked abandoned, with broken windows, faded paint, and a rusty locked door. It had not been used in years since the new digital library was built. Most students avoided the area, saying it felt creepy. The sun was slowly going down, and long shadows stretched across the ground. Ethan stood behind a large tree waiting. After a few minutes, he saw Ava walking carefully toward the library. She looked even weaker than she had during lunch. Her steps were slow, and she kept glancing around as if checking for someone following her. She hugged her bag close to her chest, like she was hiding something inside. When she reached him, Ethan stepped out. Ava jumped slightly, startled, then relaxed when she saw it was him. You came, she whispered with relief. I said I would, Ethan replied calmly. They stood there for a moment in silence, the quiet around them making the world feel smaller. Finally, Ava looked at him with serious eyes. Ethan, I don't have much time, she whispered. I need to tell you something, but you must promise you will not say this to anyone. Not a teacher, not a friend, not even your family. Ethan nodded without hesitation. I promise. Ava took a shaky breath. 3 months ago, after my mother died, my father hired a new doctor for me. He said I looked stressed and needed special treatment. At first, the medicine helped me sleep, but after a few weeks, I started feeling weak, tired, dizzy. I told my father, but the doctor said it was normal, that my body needed to adjust. Ava looked at the ground as if ashamed. I trusted them. I took every dose, every single time. Ethan listened carefully, his heart sinking. But then, Ava continued, I noticed something. The more medicine I took, the weaker I became. I tried to skip doses, but the doctor would tell my father I wasn't following instructions. So my father ordered the driver to make sure I took it in front of him. Ava's voice cracked. Ethan, I feel trapped in my own home. I'm watched all the time. Ethan's eyebrows pulled together. Ava, this is serious. You need to tell your father what's happening. Ava shook her head helplessly. He trusts the doctor more than he trusts me. He thinks I'm imagining things because I'm still sad about my mother. If I complain again, the doctor says I need stronger treatment. And my father agrees. Her hands trembled as she spoke. Ethan's mind raced. But why would a doctor do that? Why make you sick? Ava swallowed hard. I don't know. But Ethan, I don't think I'm just sick. I think someone wants me to stay weak. Maybe even worse. Ethan felt a chill run through him. He had suspected something, but hearing it from her made everything frighteningly real. Have you told anyone else? He asked. Ava let out a sad laugh. Who would believe me? Everyone thinks I'm just a rich girl who wants attention. Even in school you saw what happened. People step away from me as if I carry trouble with me. Ethan thought of how students ignored her collapse and felt anger stir inside him again. Ava, you're not alone anymore, he said firmly. I believe you, and I want to help you. Ava looked up, her eyes filling with tears she tried to hold back. But how? You can't fight money, Ethan. You can't fight the people around my father. They are powerful. Ethan took a slow breath. He didn't have a plan, not yet. But something inside him refused to walk away. First, we need proof, he said. Something that shows the medicine is wrong. Ava nodded slowly, as if she had been waiting for someone else to say those words. She opened her bag and took out a small white bottle. I stole one, she whispered. My next dose. I skipped it today so I could bring this to show you. Ethan looked at the bottle. It had no brand name, just a printed label with her full name and a prescription code. We need someone who can test it, Ethan said. Someone who isn't connected to your father's world. Ava looked worried. Who? Ethan thought for a moment and remembered an elderly pharmacist who lived near his neighborhood, Mr. Harris. He wasn't rich, but he had knowledge and honesty. I might know someone, he said. Ava exhaled shakily, as if a small weight had lifted off her shoulders. But just as Ethan was about to hand the bottle back, they heard footsteps approaching. Ava's face turned pale with fear. Ethan quickly hid the bottle inside his jacket. Round the corner came the vice principal, Mr. Davies, known for being strict and loyal to wealthy parents. He eyed both of them suspiciously. What are you two doing here? He asked in a cold voice. Students are not allowed behind this building. Ava quickly wiped her face and spoke politely. We were just leaving, sir. Mr. Davies gave Ethan a long, uncomfortable stare. Ava, your father's driver is waiting. He said you must not be late. Ava looked down and nodded. She whispered to Ethan, Be careful before walking away. Mr. Davies watched her leave, then turned to Ethan. Stay away from Miss King. Her family doesn't like complications. His message was clear. It wasn't advice. It was a warning. Ethan walked home with the bottle hidden in his pocket and fear growing inside him. Someone at school was monitoring Ava. She was not safe, not even on campus. As he reached his small home, Ethan realized something important. He had stepped into a dangerous world, and there was no turning back now. The next morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual, the memory of the previous day still heavy in his mind. The small white medicine bottle sat hidden inside his old school bag, and every time he looked at it, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He needed answers. Before school, he stopped by Mr. Harris's small pharmacy, a tiny shop squeezed between a laundromat and a fruit vendor. The doorbell jingled softly as Ethan entered. The smell of old wooden shelves and herbs filled the air. Mr. Harris, a kind man with grey hair and glasses, looked up from the counter and smiled. Ethan, you're here early today, he said. Ethan walked closer and lowered his voice. Sir, I need your help. It's important. And secret. Mr. Harris frowned slightly, sensing the seriousness in Ethan's tone. Ethan handed him the bottle. Can you test this? I need to know what's inside. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses and studied the label. This is a private prescription for a wealthy doctor, he said slowly. Where did you get this? Ethan hesitated. I can't explain everything yet, but someone's life may depend on this. The pharmacist stared into Ethan's eyes and saw honesty and fear. After a moment, he nodded. Come back tomorrow. I will check it quietly. Ethan thanked him and quickly left, heading to school. His heart pounded the whole way. He hated keeping secrets from his mother, but he couldn't involve her. Not yet. At school, the atmosphere had changed again. The rumors around Ava had grown uglier overnight. Someone had posted a picture of Ethan helping Ava, and the comments mocked both of them. Poor boy wants attention. Trying to marry into money. Someone tell him she's cursed. Ethan ignored the stares, the whispers, the snickering. But it hurt. He wasn't used to being noticed at all, and now he was being noticed for the wrong reasons. When he entered the classroom, conversation stopped for a moment. Then someone said loudly, "Hey Ethan, is your new girlfriend in hospital today?" Laughter spread across the room. Ethan clenched his fists but stayed calm. He refused to give them the reaction they wanted. Ava walked in a few minutes later. She looked as weak as ever, but today there was something different in her eyes, guilt. She had seen the picture too. She walked to her seat slowly, and students moved their chairs away as if she carried disease. A girl even sprayed perfume in the air after Ava passed by, making others laugh. Ava sat down quietly, her face turning red from humiliation. Ethan felt his heart twist. At break time, Ethan approached Ava near the lockers. She looked up at him with sad eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered before he could speak. "Because of me, people are targeting you. I shouldn't have asked you to help." Ethan shook his head. "Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. They're acting like this because they don't know the truth." Ava hugged her books tightly to her chest, as if holding herself together. "It doesn't matter. I told you being around me brings trouble." Ethan looked at her firmly. "I'm not leaving you alone, Ava. I promised to help you. That hasn't changed." Her eyes flickered with emotion, fear, hope, confusion. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't gain anything by helping me." Ethan paused. It was a fair question. He barely knew her. "Because I can't watch wrong things happen and pretend I don't see." Ava stared at him for a long moment. Then her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. Before she could say more, Mia and Chloe appeared, arms folded, wearing disgusted expressions. "Ava, your taste has fallen so low," Mia sneered. "Talking to the poor boy. Desperate much?" Chloe smirked. "Careful, Ava. If you hang out with him, people will think you're poor too." They laughed as if their words were harmless jokes. Ava flinched. Ethan wasn't angry for himself. He was angry for Ava. She didn't deserve this cruelty. "Leave her alone," he said quietly but firmly. Mia rolled her eyes. "Oh, look, the hero is defending his princess." "How cute," Chloe added. "Just wait. Her father will crush you if you keep bothering her." Ethan stepped forward slightly. "I'm not afraid of him." Chloe's smile faded. "You should be." Ava pulled Ethan's sleeve gently, her voice trembling. "Please don't. They're not worth it." Mia and Chloe walked away laughing, but Ava's eyes stayed down, filled with shame. After they were gone, Ethan said, "Ava, they're cowards. People who hurt others are always hiding their own fears." Ava nodded weakly, but her shoulders were shaking. Her strength was disappearing not just physically, but emotionally. Later during class, Ava suddenly felt dizzy again. She placed her head on the desk and her breathing became uneven. Ethan saw her struggling and quickly slipped her a small candy from his pocket. "Sugar helps if you feel faint," he whispered. Ava took it with a weak smile. The teacher noticed but said nothing. It was easier to ignore. After school, as Ava walked to her car, the driver stood by the door watching her closely. Ethan observed from a distance and saw the way the driver's eyes tracked Ava's every move. She looked back at Ethan just for a second, as if silently asking him to stay strong. Ethan nodded. The car drove off and Ethan headed home, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. That evening he sat on his bed thinking of everything that happened. The world Ava lived in was cold, cruel, and full of secrets. She was surrounded by people, but completely alone. Ethan realized something important. The sickness was only one part of the problem. The bigger problem was the people around Ava, people who were supposed to care. people who were supposed to protect her. But instead they were letting her fall. Ethan made a promise to himself that night. Ava would not fall again, not while he was there. The next afternoon, Ethan rushed to Mr. Harris's pharmacy the moment school ended. His heart beat faster with every step. He needed answers, and today he would get them. When he entered, the shop was empty. Mr. Harris locked the door behind him and pulled down the blinds. His face looked tense, almost worried. "Ethan," he said quietly, "we need to talk." He led Ethan to the small office in the back, away from any customer's ears. The tiny room smelled of paper and medicine. Mr. Harris took out the same white bottle and placed it on the table. "This is not normal medicine," he began. "The prescription label is correct, but the formula inside is wrong." Ethan frowned. "Wrong? What do you mean?" Mr. Harris took a deep breath. "Ethan, these pills should help someone recover from weakness, but the pills inside are different. Someone has replaced them. They contain a substance that weakens the body slowly. If taken every day, it can damage the nerves and cause fainting, memory problems, dizziness, and emotional breakdowns." Ethan froze. "You mean someone is making her sick on purpose?" The words tasted bitter in his mouth. Mr. Harris nodded sadly. "Yes, this isn't an accident. Someone close to the girl switched her real medicine with these harmful pills." Ethan felt anger rising inside him like a storm. Who would do something like that to Ava? Mr. Harris lowered his voice. "Most likely someone who has access to her prescription and trust of the family." Ethan immediately thought of the strict driver watching Ava like a guard dog. He also remembered the expensive perfume lady in the house, who looked at Ava like she was a burden. And then the most frightening thought hit him. What if the person hurting Ava was inside her own home? "Mr. Harris, thank you," Ethan whispered. "If I find out who did this, I will stop them." Mr. Harris placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ethan, listen to me. This is dangerous. Rich people protect their secrets fiercely. Be careful." Ethan nodded, but his mind was already set. Ava needed to know the truth. He left the shop and hurried toward the King mansion. He didn't care if the guards pushed him away again. He had to warn her. As he reached the tall gates, 2 guards blocked him. "You again?" one of them said, annoyed. "Move aside. I need to see Ava. It's urgent," Ethan said strongly. "So you're not allowed," the guard replied. Ethan refused to leave, but as the guards advanced, the same older woman from before walked out, Lydia King, Ava's aunt. She was dressed in a fancy coat and jewelry that shined even in the dim light. She looked at Ethan with a cold, amused expression. "Oh, it's you, the boy who thinks he can save Ava." Ethan swallowed, feeling his anger rise. "She is being poisoned. Someone switched her medicine. She needs help." Lydia's expression changed for a split second, shock, but then she let out a mocking laugh. "Poisoned? That's a dramatic imagination you have. You watch too many movies." Ethan took out the medicine bottle. "This isn't imagination. A licensed pharmacist tested it." Lydia stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "Listen carefully, boy. You are poor. You are nobody. Stay away from our family and Ava. Whatever happens inside this house is none of your business." Ethan clenched the bottle tightly in his hand. "Ava trusted me. I won't let her die." Lydia's friendly mask vanished. Her face turned sharp and threatening. "I won't warn you again. Leave now." She signaled the guards, and they opened the gate just enough to push Ethan out. The gate slammed shut in his face. Ethan stood there, helpless but burning with determination. For the first time he felt true fear, not for himself but for Ava. Later that night the rain poured heavily. Ethan sat at his small kitchen table with his mother, who noticed his silence. "Ethan, is something bothering you?" she asked. He wanted to tell her everything, but he didn't want to worry her. "Just school things," he lied softly. His mother placed a comforting hand on his. "Whatever you're facing, remember you don't have to face it alone." Ethan looked at her loving eyes and wished Ava had someone like her at home. After dinner, he went to his room, pulled out his old phone and typed a message to Ava. "I need to talk to you. It's important. Your life is in danger." He waited but received no reply. Minutes passed, then an hour. Nothing. Worry filled his mind. Was Ava okay? Was someone stopping her from seeing messages? Meanwhile, inside the King mansion, Ava lay in her room, shivering under her blanket. Her hands felt cold and her body was weak. She stared at the ceiling. tears sliding down her face silently. She didn't know why she felt worse every day. She didn't know why her father never came to check on her anymore. Her phone vibrated under her pillow. She reached for it with trembling fingers and read Ethan's message. Her heart stopped for a moment. "Life in danger?" she typed back, but before she could send it, her door opened suddenly. Lydia entered without knocking. "Ava, dear, time for your medicine," she said with a fake smile. Ava quickly hid her phone. "Aunt Lydia, can I skip it tonight?" "I don't feel well." Lydia's eyes turned icy. "Exactly why you must take it." She placed 2 pills into Ava's hand and watched closely as Ava put them into her mouth. Ava pretended to swallow but hid them under her tongue. Lydia waited, then finally left. Ava spit the pills into a tissue once the door shut. Her heart raced. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She grabbed her phone and texted Ethan, "Meet me tomorrow after school. Don't let anyone see us." Then she cried softly into her pillow, scared of the truth she didn't fully understand yet. Across town, Ethan read her message and whispered to himself, "Hang on. Ava, I won't let them hurt you." The storm outside grew stronger. Lightning. The next day at school, Ava arrived looking weaker than ever. Dark circles sat under her eyes and her hands shook as she held her books. She hadn't slept. The fear of the pills and her aunt's cold eyes had kept her awake all night. Ethan watched her from across the courtyard. He wanted to run to her, but he had to be careful. Too many eyes were watching. When the bell rang for lunch, Ava slipped out of class quietly and headed for the old science lab behind the school, the place she and Ethan had secretly agreed to meet. The hallway was empty and silent. Dust covered the tables and sunlight passed through the dirty windows in thin lines. Ethan entered a minute later. The moment he saw her, his heart ached. "Ava, you look worse," he said softly. "I know," she whispered. "Please tell me what you found." Ethan took a shaky breath and pulled the white medicine bottle from his pocket. He explained everything, how Mr. Harris tested the pills, how the formula was changed, and how the pills were slowly destroying her body instead of healing it. Ava listened in silence, each word hitting her like a stone. When Ethan finished, she covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. "Someone wants me sick. On purpose?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Ethan nodded. "I think it's someone inside your house. Someone who has access to your medicine every day." Ava leaned against the wall as her legs almost gave out. "Why would anyone do that to me? What did I do wrong?" Ethan stepped closer. "Nothing. This isn't your fault. Someone else has a reason. Maybe money. Maybe power." Ava wiped her tears, but more came. "Ethan, I'm scared. If this is true, I can't stay there. They will keep giving me the pills." Ethan's voice became firm. "Then we need proof. And you must stop taking the pills completely." Ava nodded slowly, fear mixing with bravery. For the first time, she wasn't facing this alone. Suddenly, the lab door clicked. Someone had opened it slightly. Ethan turned quickly, but by the time he reached the door, the hallway was empty. Someone had listened. "We need to be careful," Ethan whispered. That evening, Ethan went to the pharmacy again. Mr. Harris prepared a report with the medicine test results typed on official paper. "This is proof," Mr. Harris said. "If anything happens, show this to the police." He placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You're doing something brave but dangerous. Protect yourself." Ethan thanked him and walked home with the report hidden inside his bag. At the mansion, Ava sat in her room pretending to read. Every sound made her flinch. The door opened and her Aunt Lydia entered again with the pills and a glass of water. "Time for your medicine," she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. Ava forced a calm expression. "Aunt Lydia, thank you, but I already took them earlier," she lied. Lydia stared into her eyes as if searching for truth. After a long moment, she walked out silently. Ava waited until footsteps faded, then grabbed her phone and texted Ethan. "We need more proof. I think she knows we suspect." Ethan replied, "Don't take any more pills. Tomorrow we expose her together." The next morning, Ethan and Ava met before school by the old oak tree outside the gates. Ava looked weak but determined. Ethan handed her half of the report. "Keep this. If something happens to me, you still have proof. Ava's eyes widened. Don't say that. Nothing will happen to you. But her voice shook because she wasn't sure. Inside the school, something unexpected happened. Mia and Chloe approached them. Ethan prepared for insults, but instead Chloe looked troubled. Ava, we need to talk, she said quietly. Ava was shocked. Why? Mia bit her lip. Yesterday, we saw your aunt talking to the principal. She was angry and said you were embarrassing the family. Then she told him to keep you away from bad influences. She meant him, Mia said, pointing to Ethan. For the first time, their voices held concern, not cruelty. Ava's throat tightened. Why are you telling me this? Chloe looked down. Because we didn't know things were so serious. We thought you were just being dramatic or spoiled, but now you look sick, Ava, really sick. Ava nodded and walked away with Ethan. The girls didn't follow. They just watched, worried and guilty. After school, Ethan and Ava headed to the mansion. They would get the original prescription from the house clinic to prove the medicine was switched. As they approached the gates, the driver, who always watched Ava, looked at them with suspicious eyes. Ava, your father is home, he said. Ava froze. Her father? After weeks of distance, he suddenly came back? The driver drove them to the front door. Inside, the air felt colder than usual. Lydia appeared instantly, her smile tight. Ava, come with me. Your father is waiting in the study. Ethan tried to enter, but Lydia blocked him. Not you. Ava looked back at Ethan, fear rising, but she walked to the study. Inside, her father, Robert King, sat behind a large desk. He looked tired, older, and serious. Ava, your aunt, tells me you're refusing your medicine and running around with some boy. Ava took a deep breath. Dad, please listen. Someone switched my medicine. It's making me sick. I have proof. She placed the document on his desk. Robert read it carefully, his face changing from confusion to shock to anger. He stood up suddenly. Where did you get this tested? He demanded. Ava explained everything quickly. Robert's hands shook with rage, not at his daughter, but at the betrayal. At that moment, Lydia entered the room, pretending to be calm. Robert, don't let her fill your head with nonsense. Robert slammed the table. Enough, Lydia. You switched her medicine. You tried to harm my daughter. Lydia's face went pale, then cold. She didn't deny it. Instead, she smirked. You never understood, Robert. Ava's condition made investors nervous. If she remained sick, your shares would drop and control of the company would come to me as planned. Ava gasped. You did this for money? Lydia shrugged. Money and power. Guards entered and Robert ordered them, take her away. As they escorted Lydia out, she looked at Ava with hatred. This isn't over, she whispered. Ava trembled. Ethan rushed in as soon as Lydia was removed. Ava ran into his arms, crying with relief. Robert watched them, surprised by how safe his daughter felt with this boy. Ethan, Robert said softly, thank you for saving my daughter. I owe you. Ethan shook his head. Ava saved herself. She just needed someone to believe her. Robert placed a gentle hand on Ava's hair. From now on, things will be different. I promise. It felt like the nightmare was over. For the first time, Ava felt safe. But as she and Ethan walked outside the mansion, a black car parked across the street slowly rolled down its window. A woman inside, speaking on a phone, whispered, Plan failed. Move to the next step. The car drove off quietly, unnoticed by them. Ethan looked at Ava. It's over, he said. Ava squeezed his hand. Maybe. Or maybe it's just beginning. They didn't know that someone else wanted Ava harmed, and the real danger hadn't even started yet. Ava returned to school after a few days of rest, finally free from the poisoned pills. Her skin had more color, and she could walk without feeling faint. Students who once ignored or mocked her now whispered in guilt and surprise as she passed by. Some even smiled softly, trying to show support, but Ava didn't know who to trust anymore. Only Ethan felt familiar and safe. During lunch, they sat under the old oak tree. "How are you feeling today?" Ethan asked. "Better, but scared," Ava replied. "What if someone else was helping her? What if there is more behind this?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I've been thinking the same. Lydia said investors were involved. That means more people wanted you sick." Before Ava could answer, the principal walked toward them. He looked uncomfortable. "Ava, your father requested that you come home right after school from now on. No staying late." His eyes shifted to Ethan, almost warning him. After he left, Ava whispered, "My dad wouldn't stop me from talking to you. Someone told him to." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we stay careful." After school, a new driver was waiting for Ava. He wore dark glasses and didn't speak. "Where is Henry?" Ava asked, referring to the usual driver. The new man only said, "Orders changed." Ethan didn't like it. "Ava, don't go with him alone," he murmured. Ava nodded. "Come with me," she told the driver. He stared at Ethan, then shrugged. "Fine." During the ride, Ethan noticed the car wasn't heading toward the mansion. "This isn't the way to your house," he said sharply. The driver gave a thin smile. "Your father wants to see you, but not at home." Ava's heart dropped. Something was wrong.